Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the LCS Proving Grounds TSM Academy versus Zeus Gaming. TSM had a response, same game plan, different draft, but boy, did they execute it to perfection.
Yeah, and I think this is really important to highlight. This is one of those compositions where, just like in the first game, TSM is either going to look really, really good with this composition, or they're going to look really, really bad. And this was one of those situations where, in like game one, their composition, similar game plan, but harder to execute. This was a game where you have a bunch of people press R, and ease of execution makes these kind of compositions look way better. So I'm very excited to see that TSM are willing to do a similar thing. You say, hey, let's try and do that again. We're going to run something pretty similar back. And overall, they started off, they got some early game wins, and then we saw their composition. There is not a lot that Zeus could do in these team fights. They could not keep their backline alive for long enough, and ultimately they got run over every single time. So we'll see, what do TSM want to do, what side are they going to be playing on, and how are we going to see these two teams come head to head? Because we said at the beginning, Zeus looking good, but TSM firing back.
And the one thing that pops out about every single one of these replays and these team fights is just how long you see the crowd control going off. One member gets targeted, you'll see fleeing, knock up, fleeing, dead. It happens time and time again. You're seeing it right now, nearsighted as well. Like, the crowd control, the chain of it was so hard for Zeus to be able to deal with, and it worked out so well for TSM Academy's favor. You can see another tower dive going through. What can you do when you have that much zone control?
Yeah, and this is kind of like one of those questions where RBM on this Lilia, like, he did about as much as Lilia could. And it's one of those reasons why people say that Lilia isn't necessarily super good into Hecarim, because you can't help your backline all that well. You need to be able to fight the rest of the front line, but when the rest of the front line is also with the Hecarim, you don't have enough time to do your DPS, right? You got like one or two opportunities to blow people up. You really, really need to have something that's either higher damage or more crowd control. And Lilia, sitting in that in-between, not going to necessarily be doing either particularly well. So we'll see. I don't think Lilia is likely to come out again if the Hecarim is available, because TSM, very happy to run it back.
Very happy to run it back. The question is, can they run it back, though? Because that comp was very, very specific in its win condition, very specific in its setup. You were saying it before the break, if you take away the Nocturne, if you take away the Galio, just one of those champions, that's pretty much that comp neutralized. You can't really run the same type of aggressive style. So I still have my questions for TSM, and I still think Zeus's fate is looking hopeful, but now we have a competitive match because now we have a series.
We do. I'm excited, Eric. This was not necessarily what I was expecting coming to the day. You and I talked about it. We were expecting our second match to be a little bit closer than this, but Zeus, looking like they have to really start playing seriously. They want to make sure that they take TSM, seriously. They have to make sure that they are not losing early on in the game, and so we'll see how they try and shore that up, right? They don't have to play the scaling thing. They can play other styles as well.
Yeah, and we'll see what style they go for. I mean, I'm still hoping for something that has a little bit more momentum. You were talking about RBM on the Lilia and changing that. I would definitely love to see a jungler that can at least press the tempo. If you go for something, I don't want to give it too much hate, but the Nidalee, even the Udyr, the Volibear, something that gives you an early footing in the game.
Yeah, there's a lot of options available. I think this is kind of one of those things where TSM actually just kind of outdrafted and then played the composition properly. I don't know. I think these are very exciting to watch, right? I know you are saying, like, well, it's kind of one stomp after the other. You just play this composition, you either win or you lose, and that's what we saw. But we're seeing a lot of cool things coming out from both teams in terms of how they want to play this macro game out. And honestly, that's really exciting to me, is watching this macro play, all the big brains coming through, and I can't wait to see. You're looking for a battle, Eric. I think we're going to get it.
I'm looking for a battle. I'm looking to see what this next draft is going to bring, though, because let's look at the last draft, right? The first three picks, exactly the same. Hecarim, Tristana, Rel. It was just in a different order. TSM Academy prioritized the Hecarim. We still haven't got word on what the side selection is going to be. If we're going to see Zeus on blue side yet, we'll get that soon enough. But even that side selection can change that dynamic so much when it comes to those first picks.
It really does. you gotta kind of identify, like, when you have X number of really strong picks, which of them actually have favorable matchups against other ones, right? Like, keep talking about the Seraphine. Seraphine, Udyr, incredible combination, but Seraphine against Udyr, Seraphine tends to be better in this situation. Despite the fact that Udyr also very, very powerful champion. So this is kind of a situation where Hecarim is very, very strong. Tristana is very, very strong, but Hecarim is really good into Tristana. So even though you have a lot of very strong picks, you gotta identify which order you can pick them in, which ones are going to be good against the other ones, and TSM, we're better at it this time around. And I think as we start looking towards the rest of the draft, now that the Alistar is starting to come out against the Rel, we are going to be seeing a little bit less success from the Rel throughout this series, because despite the fact that it is very strong, it does have counters that aren't as powerful.
And we know that TSM Academy with Yurson, he really does like picking that Alistar too, so he's very, very proficient in it. And that early game, to punish out Rhino like that, knowing that Rhino and Raheen were going to get way too close, that was some good stuff. And you could see why Yurson feels so comfortable picking that Alistar. And what other champs can we really see to come out of Yurson if he is going to switch it up a little bit? Because that's always the fun part to me, like just guessing what the support's going to be, guessing who is going to carry Cody's son all the way to the victory.
Yeah, I mean, he's been playing a lot of these traditional tank supports, right? You got the Alistairs, you got the Rels, you got the Nautilus, you got, even the Thresh, right? He's got a lot of things that he can play, but I expect it to kind of all be in this typical zone of champions that just want to go in. I wouldn't be surprised if later on we end up seeing something even like the Leona come through, just because it is also in that same class of champions that you can kind of plug and play with pretty similar results. A little bit longer range engage, but not necessarily as much immediate team fighting power or something like the Rel. But it's definitely something that seems like it would be in your son's wheelhouse. So, I don't know. I think this is a very, very balancing series, right? I'm trying to come up with the best way to say this, right? It is a thing where things are hanging by such a small thread. They are constantly on the knife's edge, where if it falls one way, one of these teams is going to be walking away with a massive win. If it goes just the other way, even just a little bit, it's going to be the other team. And if Zeus opts into that once again, they're giving TSM the tools to determine which way it's actually going to fall.
And do keep in mind that if you do lose here, it's not the end of the road. This is a double elimination bracket, so you do get a second chance to be able to come back and try and find victory. Dignitas Mirage, they're still waiting down there. They're waiting for the next opponent. And that's what makes this exciting right here. I mean, even if you do falter, you still have that second breath where you can try and make that comeback. So it's not going to be the end of the road here for either of these teams, and they're sure to bring more exciting games throughout this tournament.
For sure. And I think all of Proving Grounds is at this point where we get to see a lot of teams that we weren't necessarily expecting to see go against each other, in years past, are now going to have an opportunity to play, right? Obviously we're just looking at the top half of the top bracket at this point. We got Cloud9 versus Dignitas Mirage, which was, a fairly close 2-0. We have FlyQuest versus Evil Geniuses, which went into Evil Geniuses, but that's something we saw before. Later on, we're going to get to watch a lot of other of these major teams have a chance to play against people that they wouldn't have necessarily played against, as we are going to be jumping into Champion Select here in just a second to try and determine which of these teams is actually going to be moving on to play against Cloud9 Academy in the near future.
Gotta continue the tourney as the bands come out. And it's going to be the same exact side selection. You're going to have TSM on the blue side and Zeus on the red side. So we'll see how that draft starts to shape up. So far, going the same with the bands.
Yep. Doesn't surprise me a whole lot. I'm still not super thrilled by this Senna pick. But it is, the exact same bands so far. The Urgot Senna. This has been both a Thresh and a Kha'Zix. Now it's the Silas. I think it's okay. And this has been Udyr both times coming out from Zeus, so we're seeing something very similar coming out. The Silas band implies to me that they are more interested in trying to pick Hansel or something like a Gnar, but you also got to remember you are playing against Allorim, who has a very good Malphite, is going to be very good at preventing Hansel from getting off the ground. So there's still a lot of play left in it, and now all of the major junglers are still up. Udyr, Hecarim, still there. Volibear, even as this big answer, still be picked.
So TSM Academy, first pick going over to them. Are they going to keep it the same? Are they going to go with the Hecarim? Brought him a lot of success. It would leave open the Tristana we talked about earlier, the Rel. Could possibly those same first 3 picks once again. Seraphine yet to be touched, but Tristana's being hovered. Nope, going straight for the horse.
Yeah, I like this a lot better. Again, Hecarim very good into Tristana. And now with Hecarim on their side, Zeus is less incentivized to pick that. But Udyr's up, Rel's up, Tristana's up, Seraphine's up, right? There's still a lot of options that they can go for from this position. But this would be interesting, right? With the Alistar already banned as one of the major counters to Rel, Thresh doesn't necessarily go up in value as much, but it is something that Rhino is particularly good at, and instead they're going to be shifting over to the Udyr, who is the other really good jungler in the patch, and now, you know, really big meme, living up to his name, hovering the Udyr after the, hovering the Kha'Zix after the Udyr has already been picked.
Yeah, I really do like the Udyr, especially going on for a really big meme. It's a champion he's very proficient in. He plays a lot of it. The Kha'Zix obviously just a bluff away, goes straight back to the Thresh. So that's been banned away before. I believe it was banned away in game number 1. So there's got to be something there for Rhino that we're just not seeing at the moment. Definitely has a liking for that champion.
Yeah, I mean, he's good at it. I'm just surprised when things like the Rel are still available. Like, you can play Rel out of the W, and that'll be good, but it's just the kind of thing where I would still generally prefer to have a Rel instead counterpick to the Thresh coming through. This has always been a big counterpick because whenever you see Thresh winding up for a hook as Nautilus, you just throw out your hook first, you crowd control each other, but you do a lot more damage as this Nautilus, so it's pretty tough for Rhino to actually play this. I like the fact that your son is adapting. They get themselves a Hecarim, Tristana, and Zeus is getting the Udyr, but now they have to find something else that's really good in this composition because it is, one, potentially really good at diving, but also can play front to back.
Interesting. Going for the Sivir, and... Okay, so you are going to get a lot of wave clear from the Sivir. I guess you can set up some kill potential going for the Tristana in this case, at least in terms of lane priority, just be able to shove that one in, but... It's been a hot minute since I've seen Sivir actually hit the Rift.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see, like, Lethality Sivir become a little bit more popular. You could still build it traditionally crit, but I'm surprised it's getting picked up this early in the draft. There are still other very strong AD carries that you can play, and Sivir not super excited to play against these champions, but it does make the Alistar ban make a bit more sense. You cannot play Sivir into Alistar because you cannot spell shield Alistar. If you try and spell shield the headbutt, you still get queued. If you don't spell shield the headbutt, then you just take the damage, right? You just get hit. You cannot stop Alistar combo as the Sivir. But now, Zoos need magic damage. They have a lot of control mages that Darkwings like to play, and of course, Allorim, lots of tanks still available because that pool has not been touched. On the other side, TSM has a lot of freedom in how they want to draft. They can pick more magic damage from Sword, they can pick more dive from the rest of the team. They have a lot of directions they can go, and the Sindri ban, a little bit surprising, but something that Sword has shown a lot of prowess on in the past.
I got it, Josh.
You got it. All right,
Josh. I just tried to say both at the same time. No, I got it. Right now, RBM really wants to play Hecarim, so he's trying to emulate it. How do you do that? You take the Udyr, you get Bear Stance, and then you get on the hunt from Sivir. Now he's going to go really fast. He gets exactly what he wants.
Yeah, watch this Gnar pick coming out from Hanser. Like, you don't ban this Malphite unless you're trying to play Gnar. Maybe Camille, actually, is another option that they could be going for, but that's what they're trying to set up at this point. They banned 2 of the things away that are really good against Gnar, and now it's a little bit more protected, whereas Raheen, grabbing Orianna for Darklings, pretty standard, you know, pretty neutral spread across the board, and we're going to have to pay a lot of attention to see how Darklings will be able to play this. What?
Rumble.
Okay.
It's a good boy. You got a problem with him? Look. It works in lore because Rumble has a huge crush on Tristana. You're going to put him in the same team. It works out at the end of the day.
True, but Tristana's not really into Rumble, unfortunately, so we'll see how that ends up working out.
It's been like 10 years. Just give the guy a yes already, man.
Or no, I don't know. We could talk about the Yordle play a little bit later on. They actually don't go with the Gnar, which is very surprising because this feels like a thing that Zoos have a lot of potential counter picks into. We've seen this Wukong before from Allorim, and again, we are looking to see where Zoos want to go, and it says they want to scrap. This is a composition that is going to be able to take a lot of these fights earlier on than they were previously going. Sivir, a lot of base damage from the Q, very happy to take some of these fights before people have a full item. Udyr very strong, and Allorim looking to be very good on this Wukong. It is something that he likes to play into the Aatrox, and now Haunter versus Allorim, two of the most storied players between these two teams, actually going to have a chance to duke it out.
And it actually brings a really fun team fight for Zeus as well. I mean, On the Hunt already adds like a wild variable in that movement speed, but when you got a Cyclone moving that fast, when you got the Man-Bear Pig moving that fast, you have a lot of potential to just cause a lot of hell and be extremely disruptive. So I like the way Zeus Gaming is going with their draft so far, but you got to give some respect over to TSM because they did get a lot of strong picks as well.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a much more chaotic game than either of the games we've seen before. And Eric, we might get a really big battle if neither of these teams are able to find early advantages in this game, but can also go very heavily in one way or the other, depending on how some of these early skirmishes and early fights go. So we got to pay a lot of attention to how people are positioning, where they're going to be moving around. Does Cody's son get to do all the damage that the Tristana is able to actually blow out, or is his front line just going to be dead to the Cyclone plus Shockwave immediately available from Allorim and Darkwing? So I'm excited to see what these two teams are going to be doing. Very fast from both teams, going to be a lot of skirmishing.
LCS Proving Grounds, TSM Academy versus Zeus. Game number 3. It's all on the line right now. Gonna find out which team is going to take it. Will it be momentum that TSM had from that last game just shining through, or will Zeus find their response with this very scrappy split team fight they have? I'm excited, Josh.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Raheen opting away from the lethality server that we've seen in the past, not going to be doing enough damage to things like Haunter's, Aatrox, and Badip's Hecarim. Instead, going to be going with a more traditional crit-oriented build in order to get these auto attacks down across all the melee champions that TSM are picking for themselves, and get the Boomerang Blade just bouncing back and forth, the Ricochet, in fact, and now it's going to be starting on the opposite sides of the map once again. RBM playing towards the top side, whereas TSM's Babip going to be clearing towards the bottom side. So once again, opposite side starts means that we might get dives and ganks early on around the 3 to 4 minute mark.
I'll be watching Babip. Boost will be watching really big meme and how fast they are able to clear and just run from lane to lane. One of the things I do like about Udyr is, you know, you always have that movement speed available to you, whereas with Hecarim, you only get it on like a certain cooldown.
Ooh,
it's much more smaller for the Udyr, but look at this. Going for the hook, finds it on the Rhino, but it's only a little bit of harassment to come through from the bot lane of TSM, and Raheen's glad to punish it on the Cody Sun.
Yeah, big heads-up play from Rhino to actually have the play at level 1, potentially stuffing any of those plays, but now neither side going to have a ward in that bush, and both teams can play for it. The fact that Yurson is playing a melee champion against Rhino's ranged champion means he takes a little bit more harassment, has a much better all-in. They're both level 2. I have to imagine Raheen probably has the spell shield there, otherwise he never would have given an opportunity for that hook.
You could tell he really wanted to go for it too, but the level 2 came in almost at the same exact time. Your son couldn't come in quick enough.
Oh,
now RBM in the mid lane, just trying to be a menace towards Sword. It's kind of the downsides of picking this Rumble. You are technically a melee. You did got a lot of kind of artificial sustain by getting that shield, but there should be a lot of poke. There should be a lot of punishment early on.
Yeah, this is a little bit interesting and kind of speaks to the fact that RBM is on a much faster clear on this Udyr than the Hecarim is, so he's going to be able to spend that extra time, just pop into the mid lane, say hello, and go back to full clearing while still maintaining CS parity with his opponent. And it's one of the things that Udyr is really good at, just very fast through here. He gets a lot of golden experience, and while it was nerfed a couple patches ago, is going to mean that he has a small lead, gets out to the Scuttle Crab first, and might actually be able to double Scuttle Crab because Raheen and Rhino building priority in the bottom lane. Dark Wings will be able to fight for it in the mid lane, and RBM can just come through and help him out.
Yeah, in the mid lane, Dark Wings, when playing the Orianna, we kind of got the flip side of it now. We're also saying that Sword is a manaless champion, so he can continue pushing and pushing and pushing. But Dark Wings on the Orianna, You have to sustain that mana. You have to deal with that resource, and that's what's kind of giving an early advantage over to Sword.
Ooh, good spell shield.
Nice spell shield. The return on the hook forces the flash out of Yersan.
Yeah. I don't know if your son was actually expecting that to hit, but Raheen was like, yep, okay, I know, you know, Nautilus Hook is very large, better safe than sorry, and take some extra damage, but ultimately, as we look across the map, small leads coming out for TSM in basically every lane. Allorim is down a tiny bit, mid lane is down a tiny bit, bottom lane is down a full wave at this point, largely due to the support counter pick in favor of Yersan. And now, as we start looking towards the upcoming Dragon, these small item advantages mean a lot more at this point in the game than they will later on. And Allorim, going with the Cole up towards the top side, says, I'm not necessarily super interested in going for a lot of these early game skirmishes. I want to scale up a little bit more, get towards that level 11, rank 2 ultimate, where I can start just one-shotting Cody-san on this Tristana.
Yeah, just be the flip side of the Nocturne, but oh! Look at this,
Okay.
going straight after Raheen. The flash comes in. Yersan just using the Hex flash, but Rhino will be able to show up down here and make sure Raheen gets out okay.
Grab it. Now on the bottom side of the map, gonna be starting up this Dragon, and it's a little bit slow, but TSM just gonna fight.
Yeah, nice play comes out, but it's not going to be nice enough to save Rhino. Rhino will fall. That's first blood going over to Cody's son. Raheen able to get some chip damage back in, but the deed has been done. TSM now rotating towards the Drake.
Yeah, the Mountain Deed has been mountain done, as they are going to be picking up this Dragon. They're going to be pushing people around. And this is the second game in a row where Cody-san and Yersan have won the 2v2 up against their lane opponents, and that's a little bit worrying, right? Tristana wants to get these early leads and find an opportunity to play for these big fights later on, and giving these early kills over is a little bit worrying. Is why this champion is so good. It has such a strong early game that it can oftentimes skip the mid game where it is not as strong. So Zoo's going to be in a bit of a rough position, and I like this fight timing as well. They're just going to be going for it while they know Babip is nearby, and if they win, great, he picks up the Dragon. If they don't win, well, Babip can leave the Dragon and come down and suddenly make it a 3v2.
Only a win for TSM in that situation. But take a look at this. A rotation coming out from Zeus from the mid lane. You do have Dark Wings coming up, and they're setting up for a dive right on the Haunter. RBM going to lead the charge. Looking for the bear stance, as now the teleport's going to come out. That's all it's going to take to get Zeus to walk away from this dive.
Darkwing.
Yeah, not done just yet. Darkwings kind of getting caught out here. Equalizer goes out, gets a bit of damage on the Darkwings, but not going to find much else. Darkwing's even willing to grab the fruits on top of the Equalizer, does not care.
It's all good. Yeah, that's a pretty big win coming up from Zeus. They don't get anything directly, but they get a lot of resources spent from TSM. But these resources aren't a win in and of themselves. You have to do something with that lead. You have to find a fight. You have to get something, and instead they're getting engaged upon.
Oh, and Darkwing's able to flash away, but he's walking straight into Haunter. Will take the Lantern, but he's still deep into no man's land. Rhino's starting to run low. Darkwing's still alive. Here comes the Cyclone, able to get one kill. It's going on to Babip. It's doing so much work, and Zeus able to turn this on a dime. Now going after Haunter, waiting for that death sentence, not willing to take it. Zeus will just take their win and walk away.
Great heads-up play coming in from Darkwings to take the Lantern into a different part of the fight. Shockwave keeps him alive, and this is Zeus fighting back early on by using their teamfight ultimates, and that's what we were saying. They gotta take these fights while TSM don't have their buttons yet, and Allorim gotta be careful about RBM and Rhino here in support.
More buttons going to be pressed in the top side. RBM tries to put the chase on the Haunter, but Haunter's able to dissuade it, so gank, not going to work out too much, but you see the roam coming out of Rhino. You see what he does when he's allowed to get out of that lane and start walking around with RBM. Let's take another look at that play that happened. That it almost looked dark for Darkwings, but he is able to escape.
Yeah, and let's just do the quick thought experiment, where what happens if there's an equalizer here? What happens if Aatrox has access to the ult and has the extra sustain that comes off of it? They win this fight handily. Darkwings and Rhino so low, and at the end of it, when both these frontliners are just beating on Haunter, there's not a lot left for them to do, but that's the win that Zeus needed to find, and TSM were the ones that opted into it. So we'll see if that confidence comes back to bite them a little bit more. Right now, doesn't mean that much. Both these teams still able to go for fights in this mid game with the next dragon spawning in about 2 minutes.
And right now, TSM still have the neutral objective control, able to grab that Rift Herald, put it onto Bip. That's going to be nice. Now, rotating around this dragon area, they are going to start establishing some vision quite soon. Should be the next objective they really do want to contest. Still got a minute 35 before that spawn, so going to be a while before we get towards that teamfight timer.
Yeah, we're seeing Grievous Wounds starting to come out from both sides of the map. Now, notably, it is going to be reducing Hauntzer's healing a little bit more than anybody else, but, you know, as people are starting to realize more and more the value of Grievous Wounds, it just does damage, right? Like, healing denied is damage done, and just being able to deny some of this health regen, a lot of the healing that a lot of people have in things like Ravenous Hunter that they take, is going to mean that you are going to deny a significant amount of the power budget that your opponents are typically used to working with. So I really like this Thornmail coming out from Haunzer early on. It's not direct damage, but it is going to be limiting Alarm's ability to do damage in these proactive trades. So 40 seconds left until the dragon spawns. Nobody with a completed item just quite yet. And both teams should be willing to spoil for this fight.
RBM hanging around towards the top side, realizes he can't stay there for too long because of the said dragon, but just might try and pick up the kill on the way out. He's going to walk into a control ward, so that will be fine for him. We'll keep Haunzer alive and in a safe spot, but with only 24 seconds left on that Drake, RBM's got to make way and head over there as fast as he can.
Yeah, no teleports from either top laner. Allorim backing away will be a little bit late to showing up for the dragon, but Haunzer hasn't moved at all, so Allorim will have a bit of an itemization advantage if he does choose to show up, but he's not coming over, and so a 4v4 potentially looking to come out. Look at where Sword is, look at where the rest of the Zoos are, and TSM recognize that they can either jump on Raheen and Rhino or leave, and they choose to leave, which is not something that I was expecting to say about TSM.
It was a tough spot where they could have gotten pincered if they did go for that engagement. Now they want to gather up as a squad and go for it now. Here comes the equalizer, but Bip critically low. Raheen will take him down. And that's just going to be the team fight right there. Zeus will get the kill and now set up the Drake.
Yeah, that was really big. The ultimates from Babip and Sword didn't have a whole lot of effect. Raheen able to keep himself alive, and Rhino with the stopwatch also going to be keeping himself alive, rewarding themselves with this dragon. Is going to be keeping them in the game. This is actually looking like the battle you were looking for, Eric. Gold is basically dead on even. One dragon apiece. People are starting to get their full items, and again, both teams willing to look at these fights coming up around the objectives. For the first time at the 11-minute mark, I have no idea who's going to win this game.
It's feeling close, Josh. It's feeling very, very close. Both of these teams have been very competitive throughout this series so far. You know, you had to stomp one way, you had to stomp the other way. Now we got ourselves a series, we got ourselves a matchup, and let's take a look at that last fight as Bip just goes in. He's too far out by himself. It's not enough time for his team to respond. Yeah,
no Galio this game. It doesn't have any real follow-up, and again, neither top laner coming up to participate in the fight means that it's just this 4v4. Ultimates from Hecarim and Rumble matter a lot. And now Tristana is kind of in that power trough, right? Doesn't have the range just quite yet, is on a full item compared to the incomplete one from Raheen, so there is some value to be had there, but it's not as much of a power difference as you will be seeing later on in the game. So RBM coming top lane, they're just fighting.
Cyclone going to be used, going straight after Haunzer, get the double knock up, the flash forward with the bear slap. Haunzer critically low, and there it is, the spear on the back of the head of Haunzer to finish him off.
But despite the fact that there are 4 kills in favor of Zeus, the gold is still even. Look at this bottom lane coming out. They have a big lead. They picked up 4 plates. They've grabbed a kill, 30 CS up in favor of Cody's son. This might be the difference this game. We were expecting to see a lot more action coming from the top lane between Haunter and Allorim, but right now, Cody's son and your son are the ones who are finding the lead for their team. They pick up their first turret at 13 minutes. They get every single plate off of their turret, and now Cody's son, again, as we said, might be skipping some of the mid-game where Tristana isn't as powerful. They got the full first item. They're starting to get another one. This cloak can build into basically whatever they want.
And the plates, the tower, all the gold, the CS, everything going over to Cody's son. And quite a champion to have that in. We'll be scaling up more and more as this game continues. You're taking a look at the jungle right now, but Bib headed towards that top side, but just to try and spot out where the pathing of RBM might be. He does spot him out in the jungle, and might look for a contention here. Nope, just gonna slip on by and pop another one. Is it gonna be the smite still? He's going for it, but will not find it. RBM will keep his red.
Yeah, good heads up from RBM. Just like, Bib's probably here. Let me make sure I smite this to deny any steal attempt. But Raheem, he's got level 9 and gets some damage onto Cody. Are we fighting?
Ooh, Buster Shot goes out, pushes Raheen away. RBM not willing to go for the engagement right now. Top side stays neutral.
Alright, yeah. I mean, you saw how much damage Raheem took from Cody's son during that engagement. Gotta be very careful, because it's not a 1v1 that Sivir tends to win, especially not down an item. But we're starting to move around as a team. We got a Herald spawning fairly soon, and a couple ultimates used. The Buster Shot from Cody's son and Raheem's on the hunt, both gone, which means that, you know, the AD carry is a little bit less safe than they would normally be, and so we're starting to look at these front lines and how they're going to interact. Stridebreaker already completed for Allorim to stay on top of people, as well as the Chem Tank already done for RBM for them to actually start looking at this backline. So, another fight spoiling. Got to pay a lot of attention to how these AD carries are going to be able to position. We know Cody's son is really good at that.
Man, Joshi, you're talking about ultimates, but what about the greatest ultimate of all, Phoenix Stance?
Phoenix Stance! Well, that's always
it always surprises me that you actually have an ultimate timer for that over in the heads-up display.
Yep, RBM caught.
Yeah, here we go. RBM getting caught out.
Big
There comes the equalizer.
equalizer.
It's beautiful, right on the path. RBM getting so low, but is able to bear stance away. Now the Cyclone
God,
comes
Cody?
out. Allorim going straight after Cody's son. He will be able to grab him and just spin right
he's
on
out.
the lantern. Style points for days. Allorim gets the kill on Cody.
Oh my gosh, Eric. What was this fight? We saw that everything seemed to be lining up for TSM. Everything seemed to be going well, but a kill going over means that basically nothing happened during all of that, except people pressed a lot of buttons, and we're going to be going to another fight in about 20 seconds. Like, watch how Raheem basically melts during this equalizer. He's getting touched by nothing else. Maybe he took a Nautilus E, maybe, but almost dies off of that alone. And as we said, without safety buttons coming in for the AD carries, they aren't going to be able to keep themselves alive. Rhino moves forward, and this is why they picked it so early in the draft, because Rhino, paying attention, this is a team game. Let's go, League of Legends.
Zeus are trying to run away with this one. The Fog of War not going to catch out Zeus from doing this Drake. Going to grab their second Drake of the game, and it will be Cloud as they continue to try and further their lead. The response out of TSM Academy is to go after Rift Herald.
And they're doing it fairly slow, but look at the item difference again coming in for the AD carries. An item and a half already completed for Cody's son. He's got so much money throughout this game, whereas Raheem, relatively poor, only has the components of what is probably a Gale Force, but could be a Kraken Slayer through this game. Now Zeus trying to find some play onto Sword, and he sniffs it out.
Going right after Sword. Bear coming out of the woods, looking to hunt him down. Shockwave goes out, but Sword is able to sidestep it. It's not needed, though. The kill will be found regardless. RBM and Rhino with that duo roam looking good in the jungle.
But what do they trade for it? Nothing in League of Legends comes for free, and now they're crashing the Rift Herald in the mid lane. Allorim fancies an all-in.
Goes for the Cyclone. Still knocking up Haunter time and time again. Will chase him down. Doesn't care that he went for that Bramble Vest. He is happy to claim that kill.
Yeah, clean 1v1 coming out from Allorim. Not something we often think of him in terms of being able to duel a lot of these players, but he's showing he's still got it. You play these tanks, you play the carries, he can do it all. And now 7-1 in kills in favor of Zeus, but they are not ahead as much as you would expect. They're down 2 turrets. They're down a ton CS, especially in the bottom lane. And as we're starting to see, it's meaning a 2,000 gold lead coming out for Cody's son. So this Tristana, very strong character, is very far ahead in comparison to the rest of the game. So we still got a game on our hands. 2,000 gold, not enough to really mean that these skirmishers are guaranteed to go in one direction.
And it's not that far off from game number 2, because TSM, the resources they were able to get, they pretty much allocated it onto Cody's son, and Cody's son was able to play safe enough to allow his squad to just disrupt that backline, as we saw for days with that Galio and Nocturne. Now, you got a similar situation, just Cody Sun and TSM are a little bit more even in gold this time. It's only about a 1k difference, but it really doesn't make that big of impact when we're 18 minutes into the game.
Okay. Monster. Ooh, into RBM.
Going in. We'll get the bear slap. Still bringing more damage onto Honster, but Honster's a big boy. He can fend for himself and not wanting to overdive his RBM.
Oh,
Here comes the equalizer right onto Raheem. The lantern is beautiful once again. Rhino will protect his ADC. The attention put onto Honster. Death sentence will not land. Babip looking to go for an engage here. Goes after Rhino. Able to land it onto Rhino, but RBM's going to be the one who's caught out. Gets caught once again, pulled in and killed by Honster. Now 5 members strong is going to be TSM as they continue to chase down Zeus. Rhino caught deep within the Baron pit. Throws out another hook and is fed to Sword. TSM are finding their footing right back into this game as they take down 2 members of Zeus Gaming.
Yeah, having all of your members together in a coordinated system is going to mean a whole lot. Raheem, okay, does have to blow the heal in order to keep himself alive, but a couple of questionable pathing decisions coming out from the Sivir means that it is going to be very difficult for them to play some of these later team fights when you're blowing your flash and heal in situations where you really don't want to have to use it. You want to be able to use these to resist the dive coming out from TSM, and now he doesn't have those tools.
And Sword's equalizers are really punishing Raheem in that case too, because like you can't spell shield it. There's not much you can really do about the equalizer. The damage just comes through. You're going to see it right here. Raheem taking a load of damage at the start of that.
Yeah, and then they look at Honser, but unfortunately, like, this is a thing where Honser takes too long for them to kill, even if they get it. This fight doesn't go particularly well for them. They're trying to kite back with Raheem, but instead gets caught. They lose their first member very quickly, and despite the fact that it's really big meme, Rhino ends up walking into the pit, doesn't have flash, doesn't have a way out, ends up giving over a second kill. And we're starting to see more fights coalescing. Again, very even in terms of gold across the map, but you got to pay attention to who is strong. Cody Sun coming in for TSM, very, very strong. And Allorim, 4-0-1 on this Wukong. Fed guy versus Fed guy. So what this game is potentially going to be looking at as we see 40 seconds before the next dragon. So everybody needs to get a back in if they want to spend their money.
Zeus now headed over towards Honster.
Oh,
got a lot of movement speed here, but Zeus are not realizing what is behind them. Honster goes straight for the engage, and there is the equalizer. Babip will take down Darkwings. RBM will fall as well. Honster able to grab that kill, and that's going to set up the dragon for TSM Academy.
Yeah, no grievous wounds between these two guys means that Hans are going to be very, very healthy throughout this entire thing. They can't even defend this turret. If you bring everybody back, you don't get anything. So they're looking to try and trade. And TSM kind of calling the bluff. They say, we see your wave clear is not here. Your inhibitor is going to be ours. We are going to take this before RBM and Darkwings are back up. And guess what? We can then leave and go pick up the Cloud Dragon because both Darkwings and RBM are still dead.
Let's see here. RBM just spawned, so did Darkwings, and Darkwings does have teleport. RBM is a very, very fast bear. So will Zeus look to go for contention? I think they are. Teleport's coming through. It's going to be a while before you get RBM, but that dragon goes down so fast. It's going to be claimed by TSM Academy.
Yeah, Zeus macro not looking as clean in this game as it has in previous games in this series. So TSM going to be pulling ahead for the first time in such a long time in terms of gold. They might be giving back this mid lane turret, potentially. No, Zeus going to have to walk away, but they're very happy with the fact that there is now no turret in the bottom lane. Haunter can push that past the river. Suddenly, it doesn't have anything that's going to bounce it back except for opposing minions, so they get a lot of free priority as long as they send anybody down into the bottom lane. Allorim doesn't have anywhere to fall back to, and TSM, I mean, the goal is even, but they are very happy with their position.
Very happy indeed. Let's see if they can continue pushing it. As you can see, they're now headed towards the Baron area, starting to gather some vision over towards that side. There are some control wards placed out by Zeus to spot out the rotations of TSM, but they're not going to be there for too much longer. Just takes one member walking over it. Still a lot of control coming out from Zeus towards this Baron side, being very careful to establish their vision, but it's what they need to close out this game. You want it all around the Baron, and you want to make sure Rhino's not going to catch you out with a sneaky hook.
For sure, we got to pay a lot of attention to Raheem. He now is fairly close to parity in terms of itemization, right? Both 80 carries on 2 items, a little bit more coming out from Cody Sun, but wow, neither of these guys know they're there.
Over the wall, here it comes, going on to Darkwings, who's able to lantern away.
Oh,
Equalizer comes
Dark
out,
Wings.
double knockup goes through, but there's the shockwave, retaliation on the sword, who is going to fall. Look at Hanser go, trying to go after Raheem. Raheem is doing his best to put in that DPS and finds the kill. Now Zeus kiting backwards, trying to get their damage in while backing off of TSM, but Cody's son was unchecked that entire fight, and he will pick up RBM.
Oh my gosh, Allorim buys so much time for the rest of Zeus. That fight was looking rough for the red team, and now they got to make sure they don't get caught out. Allorim might have to flash this wall.
Oh, Hook comes out once again. Hook
Okay.
not going to be returned from Yurisan, so that is the disengage. TSM just going to back off, not try their luck.
All right. Can't wait to see this replay, because it's one of the few times where we gotta highlight someone who didn't get a kill, basically solo carrying the fight. In the meantime, though, we'll get an opportunity to see Zeus and TSM very, very even, 6-9 in kills. And now, again, we gotta wait for these objectives to come up. Neither team going to be really able to easily siege against the other. They don't have a whole lot of range. Neither team has a whole lot of poke. But watch Allorim play this fight as we get into the replay, because Raheen, Darkwings, not able to do a whole lot. They actually take a lot of damage. Raheen has not been auto-attacking this entire time, but Allorim better able to play the 1v4 on the opposite side of the map than Sword is at this point in the game. He is so strong, he is able to turn around and keep the rest of his team alive. But this is what's going on. This Fed guy, Cody's son, interacts poorly with the Fed guy on the side of Zeus. So we're back to this original situation. We're back to both teams lining up and potentially looking to fight, and huge item completion for Cody's son. Lord Doms is going to allow him to get through Allorim much more quickly in the future.
Here comes the Hook over the wall, lands onto Yurisan. Babip willing to challenge that right now. The flay comes out, a lot of damage onto Babip. On the hunt is going to be popped as Raheen runs forward, but Babip is too fast, and so is the rest of TSM Academy. Not going to be able to find that engage. Instead, just going to use the time, get vision once again all around this Baron area.
Yo, that is some confident energy from Raheen, and now Rhino and RBM gotta run.
Yeah, over the wall. Here comes Sword. They're going after RBM. He grabs the lantern, but it will not work. Hook goes out onto the clone. The jungler is down, so TSM smell Baron.
Okay, see what they do. They still have their ultimates available, but they don't have a smite, so they gotta look to take the fight. Rhino gets caught.
Hook comes out, spell shield onto
Shockwave.
It's gonna be Rhino going down, but here comes the Cyclone. He's trying to find two. Out comes the Boomerang. Kill going through for Rahid, who's able to grab it. Now Allorim starting to go on the retreat as he's far too low. Cyclone will buy him a little bit of time, but the flames right behind him will be outran. Allorim able to get away, and still Zeus, they're willing to fight at every chance they got.
Yeah, RBM is alive for this dragon, and Babip is not. The Cloud Drakes themselves, not particularly useful, but the Cloud Soul, so good for both these teams. The amount of movement speed you get, both when you cast your ultimate and just naturally running around, going to be huge for either team. The positioning advantage they're able to get with it, the extra damage you get on the Hecarim, so powerful. And we'll see this, like, Allorim, so good, dude. Darkwings uses a shockwave perfectly, and it gets layered incredibly well. And Raheen, like, you know, we were praising him earlier. He's not having a whole lot of effect on this game. The only thing he really did during that fight was get one Q onto Babip at the very end. And as I start to run away, the game ends up resetting once again to an even position, Eric. We are less than 500 gold between these teams.
And can I just say, something I noticed in that replay was Cody's son's buster shot was on point. That's the only reason the Cyclone wasn't able to catch Cody. He just pushed Allorim away from the get-go and let himself be in a situation where he can just freely reign in DPS.
Yeah. And guess what? Raheen's caught up. He has the same number of items as Tristana all of a sudden. And because of all the melee champions that are coming in from TSM, Orianna and Sivir suddenly getting a lot more value, right? You get this AoE down onto multiple members because they're standing on top of each other whenever you front to back. So Zeus looking very excited in this situation. There's a lot of opportunities, though, for TSM to still play this out. They have a lot of flanking tools. They have some backline access. They can use the equalizer to make sure Raheen and Darkwings don't get into these team fights. So we still have lots of game to play. But because so many turrets have been taken on both sides, a devastating team fight win, a decisive one, can potentially end the game because it'll open up the base and allow you to just go for all these objectives.
Zoo's posturing up in these bushes once again. They've been kind of repeatedly trying to set up some kind of pseudo death bush, and now they're just going for the outright engagement on the hunt spot. There goes RBM going for the backline, bear slapping whoever he can find on
Raheen.
Slot of shadows, able to get him in, but Raheen is caught out in the middle. A shutdown goes through, and Zoos are starting to melt. Cyclone's doing a lot of work. Can it turn this fight around? Darkwings is working as hard as he can to keep his team into this. The hook will not find its mark, but the healing is there from Hanser to make sure that Darkwings does not want to take this fight, but Hanser very surely does as he swings away at Darkwings. Darkwings able to get the movement speed boost to get himself to safety. That's 2 down for TSM, 3 down for Zeus.
And the one melee champion on TSM that's not getting caught in all this AoE is Cody Sun, able to stay alive. And now Allorim thinks they're hitting the Baron, but guess what? He's not. They don't pull the trigger.
Playing very, very safe here. Hex Flash over the wall. Nope, Yursan just gonna bluff it to check if there was a ward there.
Wow, okay.
Yeah,
Largest gold lead we've seen in a long time. 1,000 gold in favor of TSM. Starting to matter less and less as this game continues to go on. Gotta watch the ultimates once again. Gotta watch the ultimate timers, how they use them. Neither team can really take a fight while their opponents have ultimates and you do not. But Allorim, 604, has 3 items, has the Black Cleaver, so he will be creating space for Raheen to do a lot of damage by shredding all the armor, and allowing Raheen to rip the other team to shreds. But Raheen died in the last fight. He was one of the first people to go down. He's the major damage source for this team. He's going to be making all these melee champions very sad if he's still alive. So the ranged champions need to stay alive, and Cody Sun did a better job in that last fight as we start to coalesce around the next objective, Cloud Soul.
I don't know, you call Raheen the only damage. Allorim says, hold my beer. These last team fights, he's been putting out a lot of DPS with those Cyclones. Been very disruptive. He's been a huge part of Zeus being able to stay in this. I mean, the scoreline just says it outright. But now Zeus, they're posturing up, going for the good old ARAM, but choosing to back off instead because you do have Sword headed over towards that bot side looking to get a split push.
See what he can do. As we said, they can move forward. They can get that lane, and they just find an engage. Hanser.
On the hunt. They saw the resources used by Hanser. His only movement
No flash.
mobility. It is gone. Allorim grabs
It's up
the
now.
kill. A member down is TSM Academy. This could be disaster right here as Zeus start heading towards the Baron.
I promise you, they knew exactly when Hanser's flash was up because it came up 2 seconds after he died. And that might be the difference between winning and losing this game. They have the members to hit this, but there's a big contest potentially coming out from TSM. They're looking to turn. Zeus looking to fight this one more time, but TSM not willing to give it to them.
But Biff, he's really watching closely, but now he knows he needs to back off. Allorim starting to go forward, really trying to posture up to set up that Cyclone. You still got a while before that cooldown comes up. So, TSM Academy don't want to chance it. They're going towards the Drake, but Zeus will challenge them. 5 strong. Zeus walk forward towards this Baron pit, but that Drake was destroyed so quickly, and TSM are able to slip away.
Okay, but that's Baron. That's the first major objective. Both teams 1 dragon away from Cloud Soul, which is so valuable for both these teams. When you're going for these team fights, having higher uptime on your ults, having more movement speed is massive for both of these teams. But this is big. At the 1,000 gold, not very big, but Baron buff suddenly means that one of these teams can push and siege, and the other one is forced to try and team fight to not give up these objectives. Allorim now moving with the rest of the team. He can kind of get this push past River, but it will eventually bounce back off the turret. But both teams gotta coalesce. Both teams gotta look for another one of these fights, and we gotta pay attention to Cody Sun, because he's the one person who can actually kind of deal with these waves from a safe distance.
Pressure being played. Zeus Setting up in the bot side, setting up towards that red side jungle. They got the vision, they got the control, they have the map, but can they use this to start to close it out? That's what they're trying to do here with this Baron Siege. Get the minions onto the towers, be able to split up TSM as a unit, and into those towers, but goodness gracious, Raheen getting way too close to Cody's son, it almost dies in the process.
Oh my god, Spell Shield used a little bit too early before the explosion goes off, ends up taking all that damage and uses the heal. That's one of these buttons that we keep talking about, Eric. You don't want to use these buttons outside of the fight. It's an extra couple hundred HP that he now doesn't have for the upcoming team fight. But he does have most of a Guardian Angel done. He has a lot of damage. He has a lot of opportunity to stay alive if he stays behind his backline. Alright, but we can wait.
This is really close, man.
Yeah. Because of that damage down, Zeus not able to pick up anything more in the second mid lane turret. And now, with the Baron almost gone, it should expire here in just a couple of seconds. Zeus has to wait for the next dragon to spawn in order to lure TSM out of the base.
Yeah, not able to get undone with that Baron buff. And it was all because Cody's son did get that harassment. That made Zeus want to back off, knowing that their main ADC was not there. So it's a stall, but it's a successful stall coming out of TSMA.
Yeah, 7 seconds left on the Baron. It's effectively gone. Do they find... No, there's no way they find Hunter here.
Oh, they're going to try and find him. Here comes RBM. On the hunt's going to be used. A lot of movement speed, knocking up Hanser. Hanser gets a nice shield. Equalizer's going to be used, but just baited out. Doesn't really get much damage, only used for the disengage.
They trade Rhino's Flash for Hanser's Flash, and other than that, all these ultimates will be back up by the time these teams look to fight again. So, ultimately, time bought, time sold, and we're waiting once again. Dragon spawning in minute 45. Baron spawning in 2.5. We're looking at another big fight, and at this point, like, again, it doesn't even need to be that decisive. If you ace the other team, and as long as it's not like your son or Rhino is the only person still alive, you can take an inhibitor with anybody else that's still out.
We were talking about that dragon earlier. This is where TSM are going to start to put their attention to. They got one more Drake until they get that soul. So getting some early vision there, taking the recalls, getting the reset, getting those final purchases, because this should be a team fight, Joshi.
Yeah. I mean, it has to be, right? Like, both teams can't afford to just give that up. Neither team is willing to just give over advantages because these teams, like, they do pretty similar things. Sivir and Tristana do massive damage. There's a little bit more need to be aggressive in team fights coming out from TSM because they have the Rumble rather than the rather than the Orianna. But, you know, Aatrox and Wukong, functionally very similar. They are these big AD threats that are going to be doing a lot of AoE damage to the other team. Udyr and Hecarim at this point, both, I mean, they have almost the exact same itemization, right? They are fast dudes that get crowd control down and try and provide space for their backline to do damage.
RBM gonna steal away the chickens while trying to get some vision over here because look at that timer, Joshi. 15 seconds before the dragon does spawn. TSM are on the outskirts of this, and Zeus are able to get priority positioning. They are starting to split up a little bit, though, as they try and sniff out where TSM are. So you got a ward
Oh,
there.
Raheen.
Ooh, and here we go. RBM's going to run on in, and the team fight's going to break out. RBM choosing to back off. He gets so low, has to run out of there. But Rahid able to grab your son. Look at Cody's son, though. He's completely unchecked. Resurrecting will be Allorim. But can Cody's son do enough? Answer might be no here. Running so low. Jumping in is Raheen. There goes the Guardian Angel being popped. But there's 5 of Zeus surrounding like sharks. They will take him down. 4 members down for TSM. Zeus starting up in the mid lane. They want to close this out.
3 players that went to Worlds. 2 players that are lauded as prodigies, young prodigies in Sword and Yurson, are losing to really big meme. Guys, NA has talent. These guys are a potential future. These guys are moving together as a team, and Allorim, the one veteran leading this team to a victory over TSM Academy in 38 minutes. Zoos are going to be the winner of the round 1 games, and by golly, man, that was one hell of a fun game. It was so close. You wanted to battle Eric, and you got it.
And North American Amateur has talent, and we saw it on display right there. That was a very competitive match between these two teams, and yeah, I loved everything I saw there, Josh.
It was so good, right? There were a couple spots where I was a little bit worried, right? Cody-san was free hitting. Raheen was in some spots that weren't necessarily the safest thing, but they were able to execute in the end. And wow, just watching these guys play, watching them have an opportunity to go up against these teams and continue to stay in the winner's side of Proving Grounds, where they will be playing up against Cloud9 Academy coming up next. Well, not today, but their next match, right? Like, these guys have to be so happy with their performance thus far. And boy, can I say I am so proud to see these guys have the opportunity to keep playing.
Yeah, Zeus, they looked great. They performed well. They went against TSM Academy. They honestly were expected to be the winners just because of the UGP results. But you got to give a little bit of credit over to TSM because they did bring it in a competitive match. They were able to squeeze out one stomp in that game number 2.
They did, and honestly, like, if I see that kind of TSM more, I think they can pick up a lot more wins, even against a lot of these stronger teams. But the 2v2s that were coming out from Zeus, like, this was giving us a little bit of surprise. We gotta praise the bottom lane coming out from TSM for keeping these games as competitive as they were. Cody-san and Yurson winning these 2v2s. Cody-san staying alive throughout all of these fights. Again, gosh, man. I did not believe in the Rhino Thresh when I saw it, but he proved me wrong.
Yes, there's so many of these plays that look like they would have been great plays for TSM, but all it took was one little lantern, and it's completely flipped. It's just a net win for Zeus. And even in these team fights, I really didn't know which way it was going to swing. You had so many great equalizers coming out of Sword, but the rest of the squad of Zeus, they just come together so well. Dark Wings had brilliant positioning, rarely got caught out, had some pretty good shockwaves, but the hero of this all was definitely Allorim. He is what kept Zeus in this series.
Yeah, he's beating up Hansir, right? He's consistently getting these massive cyclones, and 9-0-7 at the end of the game, looking really good on a slightly unconventional pick in the Wukong. Just goes to show why he's been having so much success with this team. But that's it, right? Zeus beat TSM Academy 2-1. They're going to be playing up against Cloud9 Academy fairly soon. And now we start turning our eyes towards our next game, our next series between 100 Thieves Academy and CLG Academy. And I know you're a big CLG fan, so tell me, Eric, do you believe?
All right. Hold on there.
Hold on. We're backing up.
I'm not the biggest CLG fan, but I have been a fan of the story of CLG Academy as they've run through this bracket so far. It's been a hard road for them. We saw that they only had 1 week with their original roster before they came into this circuit, and they did some great things. But we are getting way too far ahead of ourselves because we haven't gotten into the player interview presented by Verizon, Joshi.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to see this. We do have Allorim on the line. He's going to have an opportunity to talk to us and give us some insight into how that went. So Allorim, first off, congratulations on taking down TSM Academy and having a dominant performance in that last game. Could you give us a little bit of insight into how you guys were feeling, especially walking into some of these fights towards the end where you had such a big impact?
Well, it's just we have the Sivir, right? And so we're sitting there going, okay, if we see any of them, we're just going to press our Sivir R and go monkey mode at them. And, you know, ironically, I happen to be playing Wukong, but that is what we were saying. We did go a little off track of that sometimes, but for the most part, we are just playing a full dive because I'm so strong, and we're kind of relying on me getting these really big ults, and along with our Oriana, we just have to play around that team fight. There, like I said, sometimes we went a little too far. We thought we did more damage than we actually do, and we kind of mess up. And Cody's son was massive that game, so we're all sweating so much. We've all got our handkerchiefs wiping our brow after each engage, like, oh my god, he's free hitting us. But at the end of the day, as long as we got that one team fight where Cody died, even with his GA, like, as soon as he goes into GA, he's going to be dead. So it just took that one fight, and as soon as we can get that, then it's a dub.
All right, I want to ask about game number 2 and, like, the recovery from that, because that was a stomp. It felt really bad going into that, but you guys just recomposed yourself so well. What is the mindset when you deal with a game like that and come into game number 3?
I've said it once, and I'll say it before. Every time we win or lose, it's right after the game finishes. It's all right, guys. The game is 0-0, and we consider it like we're playing a best of 1. And if we are 1-1, then it is a best of 1 technically after the game is done. So after that game, it's all right, guys. You know, we got one game to play, and just give it our all. And you know, we might have gotten stomped game 2, but in a series that we are firmly believing that we can take, you know, in our hands as long as we're not making mistakes, like, you know, Raheen dying 2v2 bot or just making silly mistakes in general. As long as we don't do that, we can have some form of control, and we're pretty good at team fighting. At least I'd like to think so. So as long as we can get to the point where we are even with the other team in the mid game, we're feeling pretty confident about our fights.
Nice. I really like to hear that. I want to hear a little bit more, right? You are kind of like the leader, the veteran leader of this team in many ways, right? You have a lot of experience playing in LCS. A lot of these guys are effectively rookies that you're going to be having an opportunity. Could you tell me a little bit more about how proud you are to see that these guys are now in Proving Grounds and starting to take down academy teams?
These are my boys, man. They're my children in the League of Legends scene. Can you believe that all of us are playing for free too, by the way? We're just sitting here. We're got our little cup out. Please, sir, some change for any org that wants to sponsor Zeus Gaming, Toilet Paper Cat. But regardless of that, I think the main thing is that all of us are more willing to play just to win, right, over money. And so while we would like some money, hint to any orgs that are looking to sponsor a team, we are here to win it. And so that's the big part of all the boys here. They're all young. They've got jobs in school. You know, they're not like me. I dropped out of school and went pro in League back in the day. But these guys, they're still even part-time in League. Imagine when these guys aren't in school and don't have jobs and they're getting paid to play League of Legends. They're going to go nuts. So we're just waiting for them to break out of that.
I can't wait to see that. Thank you so much, Allorim. Congratulations on your win, and good luck against Cloud9 Academy. They're going to be a tough team to beat, and I hope you guys can really show what you guys got.
All right, thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for that series. And again, congratulations over to Zeus, but now we can get the topic in that direction, Joshi. Now we can start talking about 100 Thieves Academy versus CLG Academy.
Yeah, I got a little bit ahead of ourselves, but we got, you know, a lot more League of Legends left to go today, and wow, like, we've had such a good Series 1 so far. I hope 100 Thieves and CLG really can bring it so that we have a little bit more opportunity to see how these teams are going to be able to play, because it is going to be a very different style, right? We see both 100 Thieves and CLG a little bit more chaotic good coming out, whereas we saw, you know, Zeus, well, they said they were monkeying. They were very lawful, right? They were pretty darn controlled throughout the entire series.
All right, we're going to throw out a short break. When we return, we'll get more into that matchup of CLG Academy versus 100 Thieves Academy. Be sure to stay tuned.
Verizon believes everyone deserves the best. That's why we start with 5G from America's most reliable network.
Verizon 5G is next level.
Then give families plans to mix and match, so you only pay for what you need starting at $35.
You get so much more than this, a great network.
And offer the best in entertainment on select unlimited plans, like Disney+, Hulu, and ESPN+, as well as Discovery+, with a Galaxy S21 Plus 5G when you buy one. There's no reason to settle for less than the best. Only from Verizon.